we started by brachas. Mental only got his Yerusha by brachas. Okay, so we are at the point where we're trying to learn that two Edim that were mechayiv somebody b'miktzas. So Shimon tells Reuben, "You owe me $100," and Reuben says, "I only owe you 50." There, the halacha is moed b'miktzas atayna yishava. What would be the case if Reuben says, "I owe you nothing," but Shimon had Edim that Reuben owed him 50? So Chiya brought a brisa that says that there'll also be a Chiya moed b'miktzas. And how do we know that? We learn it from moed b'miktzas. And we say madach moed b'miktzas, which is piv, which has a shvachkeit. Why? What's the weakness of piv? She'ein mechayv v'mammon. So ma piv she'ein mechayv v'mammon, mechayv v'shvuah, edim she'mechayv v'noisay, which actually piv she'ein mechayv v'knas. Madach piv, if you're moed on a knas, you're moed that you stole, you won't be chayv the knas. Yet, if you're moed b'miktzas, you're still chayv v'shvuah. So piv. So edim, I mean, that if they say you stole, they would be mechayvim with kefil, they would be mechayvim with the knas. Surely they should be mechayvim with a shvua if they say edus on miktzas. So the Gemara has different ways to deflect that kal v'chomer. So the Gemara said, ma lepiv shekein mechayv korban. We know a korban shvua when somebody swears falsely and then he's moida, he has to bring keren v'chomish v'asham. So his mouth could be mechayvim a shvua. Actually, I learned wrong shot of this. Rashi says, Malaviv Shkem Mechav Korban means not the case of korban shvua, a regular case. Someone ate chaylev by mistake, so he could be mechayiv himself. When he realizes that he did this aveira, it's mechayiv a korban. Tomer be'edim she'ein mechayiv v'noisei korban. You're going to tell me that Edim don't have that strength. Edim cannot be mechayiv a korban, and since Edim cannot be mechayiv a korban, maybe Edim would not be mechayvim with a shvu. So maybe Reb Chiya holds like a mayor that Edim could be mechayiv somebody with a korban. Mikal v'chomer the Tanan. Amar loy shnayim achal tochel. Two people told him. Two Edim came and said, "You ate chelav." Who Amar loy achal, and he said, "I did not eat chelav." Reb Meir mechayiv. Reb Meir says because of the Edim he has to bring a korban. The Chacham say he doesn't have to bring a korban. He's talking about a korban chat. It's a chat chelav. Amar Reb Meir. Reb Meir tiny to the Chachamim. I don't understand. Im hevi u shnai mil de misa chamura. If two people can cause somebody to get killed by saying edus that he was machal Shabbos with edim and asra, lo yaviu the korban akal. Surely two edim should be able to be mechayev somebody with a korban. Zok to Gemara Amar loy. They told him back. Ma'im yirtza loymar mezer yisi. You fought there. If this person would have said, "Yes, you're right, I ate chelav, but I ate it b'mezer. Therefore, I'm not machayev a korban." So migoi that I could pater myself on my korban by saying that it was mezer, and there I would be nemon. I can also say that I never ate it chelav. So therefore, according to Reb Meir, we don't have this pircha because edim could be machayev a korban. Ella malapiv shekein mechayve asham. Maybe he could be mechuyev himself on asham when he's moida that he stole and he swore falsely. So more asham hainu korban. If you hold that if you hold like a mayor, the edim could be mechayvim achatos, edim could be mechayvim an asham as well. Ella, let's try to slug up the kal v'chomer by saying malapiv shekein mechayve chomish. When he's moida, he also has to pay a chomish. But Edim cannot be mechayiv mechayish. Dr. Mahalakasha, Reb Chiya Reb Meir Shvirlei, and Kihecha the mechayiv lekarban mikal v'chomer, mechayiv lechayish mikal v'chomer. The same kal v'chomer that allows Edim to be mechayiv to bring a korban, which was if they could be mechayiv somebody misa, they could surely be mechayiv somebody a korban. Well, if they can mechayiv somebody misa, they can surely be mechayiv somebody a chayish. Ella, we're still not giving up. We're going to slug up this kal v'chomer. Ella malapiv. Shekain einoi be'akhoshu bazom. A person cannot be subject to a kosher or azoma. If a person's moida that he owes somebody $100, even if Edom come along and say it's not true, he's still mechuyev to pay that $100. Hazama, you can't be mahazam a person who's made on something. It doesn't make sense to do that. Edim are subject to akchosha or azama. So they're weaker than piv. So therefore, piv could be mechayiv and mashvua, but who said edim could be mechayiv and mashvua? Ella also made echad. So now we're going to change. Instead of the makar being moedim miktas piv, the makar that two edim can make someone swear is from the fact that one eid could make somebody swear. And this is what the Kabbalah Chayver would be. Umay echad shein mechayiv imamin. And eid echad cannot be mechayiv you to pay. If an eid echad comes along and says Reuben owes Shimon $100, Reuben does not have to pay. But mechayiv shvua, he does have to swear to be makdish those edim. So edim shemechayiv nois imam, two edim that could force Reuben to pay Shimon money. Einoi din shemechayiv nois shvua. Surely two edim should also be mechayiv and shvua on what they're not made. So right away the Gemara jumps on that. Ma'aleid echad shekein al ma'ashu meidu nishba. Yes, an eid echad could be mechayiv shvua, but an eid echad could only be mechayiv shvua on what they're saying edus on, that he would have to contradict them. You want to say from there that two edim can be mechayiv shvua on what they're not even saying edus on. Tamer be'edim shalmasha kafar hu nishba. You can't make such a stretch. Elomar papa asi migilgul shvua eid echad. By a gilgul shvua eid echad, the person is making a shvua on what the edim are not saying edus on. So what would be the example of gilgul shvua eid echad? Reuben says to Shimon, you owe me $100. Shimon says, I owe you nothing. And Reuben brings an eid echad that says that he owes the $100. So now Shimon has to swear that he doesn't owe Reuben the $100. But once Shimon can demand that shvua from Reuben, I don't even know who's the malva and who's the loiv anymore in my case. I'm all mixed up. But once the malva could demand from the loiv a shvua to contradict the eid echad, now if they have any other business together, the malva can ask the loiv to swear on other things as well. So you see, the eid echad is being mechayiv somebody a shvua even on something that the eid echad wasn't saying edus on. So too, by two edim, you should say the same thing. So tomorrow, malagul shvua eid echad. When there's already a shvua nischayiv, and the aid could be the mechayiv the shvua, because that's direct contradicting what the aid said. Once there's a shvua there, so we'll allow other shvuas to happen. But by edim, the moment mechayivi, all their mechayiv is moment, but there is no chiyav shvua at all. So where would a shvua grow out of thin air that they should be able to be mechayiv the loiva with a shvua? Zogt Gemara, this taina that al mashu nishma, this taina that you don't see that two edim can be mechayiv somebody shvua on what they're not saying testimony on. That I can contradict with piv yochich, because piv, what am I swearing on? I'm swearing on what there is no idea on. So too by two edim, I should be able to swear on what the two edim are not talking about. Zok Gemara, but piv we already illustrated, we already demonstrated that you can't bring a raya from piv. Ma'ala piv shekin einoi b'chosha, like we just said on the base. Zok Gemara, you're right. But eid echad yichiach sheyesh lo b'chosha, and eid echad here also is mechayiv b'shvua, and eid echad is shaykh b'chosha. So hakosha can't be the reason. Mechayiv b'shvua. Zok Gemara, ma'ala eid echad shekin al mashamei unishba. Going back to the same time as before. Tamer be'edim. Shalmasha kafar unishba piv yochia. The chazra adin lo yirah yizeh kara yizeh, but lo yirah yizeh kara yizeh. Piv is mechayiv b'shvua, eid echad is mechayiv b'shvua, and they're different. One is being mechayiv b'shvua on what he's not saying testimony on, and the other one is just b'chosha. But atzara shabbos shebehen. What does piv and eid echad have in common? Shal yidei taina ukvir ein boim. The shvua is coming from Tainu Kfir, which Rashi explains as Zeh Toyin, Zeh Koifer. One is demanding, one is a plaintiff, and one is a denier. Hein Boy Lod, that's what the entire about. Tainu Kfir Hein Boy. And Vinishba. And you see that it's Mechayiv Dem Shavua. Af Ani Avi Edom. Therefore, we also can say that two Edom who say an Edus on half of the amount, Tainu Kfir Hein Boy, Vinishba, you should be able to swear. There's a very big difference between either a dos piv or eid echad and two Eidim. What's the primary difference? If someone was moida b'miktas, we have no proof that he ever lied, that he ever denied something that he owed. If there's an Eid Echad that came, again, we don't have any proof because an Eid Echad will not disqualify anybody. But if you have two Eidim that say he owed 50 and he denied that he owed anything, so he clearly lied on the 50. So who said there will be Mechayev Meshua? Taimer Ba'edim Shekin Huchza Kafran? Who said, as Rashi says, since he denied it all, the Heim Hidu Allah Chamishim. And Eidim said that in fact he did owe 50. So Huchza Kafran, this guy is a known liar. Who said you could believe him to make the shvuah? Correct the Gemara. Just because someone clearly denied that he owed something, does that make him into a chashud? Does that make him into a non-believable person? Even if someone was contradicted by Eidim, mi hochza kafrin, are you really saying that that makes him into a kafrin, and now we should not believe him for a shvuah? What if someone denies a milva? And as Rashi says, bein al kula, bein al miktas, and then ubo Eidim v'hediuhu achaloi nishba, and the Eidim came and contradicted him even before he swore. That means he didn't swear yet. It means he did not yet swear l'sheker. He was only guilty of being kaifer b'milva. Nevertheless, kosher leidus. The next day they can come and say edus. So Rashi v'loyamrin in Gazlan. We don't say he is a proven Gazlan. He denied that he owed, and we know with two Eidim that he did owe the money. But you don't say that he's labeled as a Gazlan and he's apostle edus because Vatayr Amr al Tashish Rasha Eid. Why not? The key on the milva lights on it. No, since when someone borrows money, it's not expected that he's going to keep it in his top drawer. Of course, he's going to be using it. You know, there's a story with a guy who went to his friend and he said, "Yankel, do me a favor. I need to borrow $100,000 cash." So Yankel says, "Why would you? You're killing your mind. Like, well, why would you need $100,000 cash? Like, I don't feel comfortable." So he says, "Yes, listen, buddy. You're my friend for 20 years. You know I wouldn't steal from you. Just lend me the money. I promise you I'll pay you back in 2 hours." He said, "What are you going to do with the money?" He says, "What's the difference? You don't trust me? Come on." So he says, "Okay." He gave him $100,000 cash. And as his word, he was there within 2 hours and he gave it back. So his friend said, "Okay, you gave it back, the transaction's over. But tell me, what did you need the money for?" So he says, I was actually going to take a probah to be a Rav, and I had to speak. So lots of ad shreden and $100,000 in tash. You could speak better with more confidence when you have $100,000 in your pocket. So that was a milva that was not loitzanit now. But most of the time, a milva is loitzanit. Dilma tzarich loitzia. I had a vacuum. Dilma tzarich loitzia. Because naturally he would have spent it. He doesn't have it anymore. And now he has to come up with the money to pay back, but he doesn't have the money. But he lawfully, improperly spent that money because that's what he borrowed it for. The savar, his cheshbon is, I don't really mean to steal. I'll deny it, and therefore I won't have to pay right away. But of course, when I get the money, I'm going to come back and pay him the money. The problem is, if I tell him now that I owe him the money, you'd pay me yad. He'll tell me to pay up now, and I don't have the money. Therefore, we consider him someone who's not really a gan if he's just in a tight spot. Going back into the Gemara, but pikadon pasaledus. But if someone's kafir up pikadon, there is pasaledus. Aval kafir pikadon, Rashi says, afilo miktsas ubo edim veidiu, and then Edim came and contradicted him and said, in fact, that he did get this as a pikadon. Pasala edus, he's pasaledus. The my havalei pikadon lishtamutinavshi. What legal thing could have occurred that he's now trying to delay? He should still have the object or the money that is watching in a safe because he never had permission to do anything with it. For Rashi, there is a possibility that he's lying and saying he didn't get the pikadon when he really intends to give it back. Because maybe V'Shema Taimer Abad Mimen, maybe he was Geneva V'Aveda, and maybe he's a Shomer Socher, and he's Chayiv on Geneva V'Aveda, and he knows he's Chayiv, and if he tells them what happened, he'll have to pay up right away, and he doesn't have the money. So therefore, he's lying and saying, "I never got the pikadon." So why then would you make a distinction between milva and pikadon? By pikadon, it's also possible that he's honest; he's just in a tight spot. Zok to Gemara, the command befriken nukminon with the asu sahadi v'amriya hishaita v'yodei nakatli. In fact, when the price that we just quoted says, I'm sorry, when Rabbi Ba'avin just said in the name of Reb Chizda that Bepikada in Pasul, that's only if the contradiction was you actually had it and we know you had it and you denied it. And that's the only time where we say that Bepikada is Pasul Eidos. But whatever the case is, you cannot tell me that when two Adam say testimony that someone owed money when he denied it, that's called Huchsa Kafrin, and we can no longer trust him, because if he's believed to say Eidos, he should surely be believed to make a shvur. But the Gemara doesn't give up. The Gemara wants to slug up this raya. So we'll have another upslug to this Mahatzad. And we could say Mahatzad Shabash Aben. In other words, Haidas Piv and Eidos, the Chiv Shua for an Eidechot, Shekain Einan B'Taris Hazama. There's no halacha of azama. In other words, avada, if you're mazam and eirachot, avada, his testimony is null and void, but he won't be subject to the punishment of kasher zoma. Timer be'edim sheyeshna b'teres hazama. Edim, if they found to be muzam, they are b'teres hazama. So if they're trying to be mechayev somebody money unlawfully, they would actually have to pay the victim that money. Zaktamar haloi kasher. That's not a kasher because Reb Chiya Teres hazama loy park. Chiya holds you can't ask a kasha from hazama, and Rashi explains you know why. But Teres hazama l'shalom class the kasha zama, because the whole kasha is based on the fact that Neirechot is not subject to the penalties of kasha zama. The Eirechot chose and potter upiv gabayda koshkid l'shayich hazama klal timer be'edim. So what does Rashi say? Teres hazama loy park. I picked the wrong Rashi. Ein chashuva loy pircha. Reb Chiya doesn't consider this to be a kasha from the fact that the aid is not sanctioned, is not punished for saying the edus that's false. Why? The kivan de'erechad yeshnei ba'azama livatlei dusay be'edus ne'edim. Avada, he is b'taris hazama, that his testimony will be disqualified. There he is b'taris hazama. His testimony becomes null and void. So the gabe his namonus, it does get wiped out through hazama. So therefore, im havalon l'meimer be'edim. If that's an argument that you want to make, that because Edim are Yeshnu Bazama, that's why they shouldn't be able to Mechayim Meshvua, I would tell you, well then the Neirechad shouldn't either be able to be Mechayim with a Meshvua, because Neirechad Lo Yichavei Shvua, the Yeshnu Bazama Livat Ledusa. They're also subject to Azama. They're Edis Libatul. So they don't get sanctioned and punished for the Azama? No. Our discussion is the sanctions, the punishment that they don't get is not relevant to our discussion of the monas. The Eirechot is just as susceptible to be undone by Azama as Shnei Edim. So right now we have a very good raya from the Mahatzad. So the problem is Ella. We have a kasha. For some reason, the Gemara decided the Gemara wants to have a kasha on Reb Chiya. We don't have a kasha on this halacha because the Mahatzad seems to be rock solid. We don't have a way to undo it, but we're not going to let Reb Chiya get away free. We still have to attack him. So Reb Chiya brought a raya from our Mishnah to his halacha that two Eidim that come and say you owe 50, when the discussion was about 100, would be Mechayev from Meshvua, and Reb Chiya wanted to bring a raya from our Mishnah. Ella the Ka'amar Batanatun. We're going to ask a kasha on that Reb Chizda brought a raya from our Mishnah. What was Reb Chizda's raya from our Mishnah? In our Mishnah of Shnai Mechsam Batalis, each one is moneying the full beged. So Reuven is moneying Shimon, the full beged is mine. And Shimon and Reuven has Eidos. And Shimon is denying it. And Shimon is saying, no, none of the beged is yours, the entire beged is mine. And Reuven has an aid that says that half the beged is his. What is the aid? The non-tzadi of a muhsik. Since he's muhsik in half of it, it's as if there are aidim that say he has half of it. So that's mamish the case of Reb Chiya. Sorry? Not in Neirechad, it's two aidim. So I'm saying the whole beged is mine, and you're saying the whole beged is yours. And I have two aidim that say half the beged is mine. So I have two, it's like mamish, I have two. It's just like I'm saying you owe me $100, you say you owe me $0, and I have two aidim that say you owe me 50. I have two aidim that say I don't have the beged. It's a very good raya. Zok Gemara, but it's not a good raya because me dummy. Hasam lemalva is lesahadi leleiva less lesahadi lelei masik leiva leimidi. In the case of Reb Chiya, the malva has edim that the leiva owes him 50. The leiva doesn't have edim that he doesn't owe him 100. So let me see. I have a feeling the gears have changed over here with the tziyonim. Let me look at the dalet over here. Is it dalet? No. What ois am I supposed to be looking at over here? Beis. Oh, it's a beis. I was looking at the loimasak loiv near limchik, right? Because the discussion is not that he doesn't have an aid that takes his potter. It means the loiva doesn't have an aid that it's 50 or not 100. In other words, the malva has an aid that you owe me 50 out of 100. The loiva doesn't have an aid that says it's only 50 and not 100. So nachma midami hasam lemalva is leisahadi, the loiva less leisahadi. The have leisahadi leloiva, the leimasik leiva leimidi, leiboy Reb Chiya shtabui. If the loiva had aidim that said, okay, 50 are owed, but the other 50 I for sure don't know, avada he wouldn't have to swear, right? Because the loiva would have had proof that he took a lot at the beginning, but now that you brought aidim that I owe you 50, I was able to bring an aid that says that I only owe you 50. So there you wouldn't swear. Hacha in our Mishnah, ki heicha danan sahadi lahai, anan sahadi lahai. The same way I have two aidim that says that I have half the beged, you have those same two aidim. So that's not similar to the case of Reb Chiya. And nevertheless, they still swear. So therefore, you don't have a raya. You don't have a raya that they should swear by two aidim. Dr. Rashi, very nicely. If you have a juk in your head that you need to break up Reb Chiya, maybe here's where there's a place where there's a kink in the armor and you can get in. The Kamar of Tana Tuna. Reb Chiya brought a raya from our mission to this halacha that when two aidim say he owes half, he has to pay. He has to make a shvu on the rest. If you raya l'dvar b'mishnah seinu, and then that you can ask me, dummy, how do you have a raya? Hasam in the case of Reb Chiya, lemalva is lesahadi, the mask bechamishim. The malva is a raya that 50 out of 100 is definitely owed, and the loiva less lesahadi be'inechamishim she'inechayv loyaleh. He doesn't have a raya about the other 50 that he doesn't owe. It's a suffix. Therefore, ihavale going ilu ha'idu edim chamishim chayiv v'chamishim para. What if the edim said that he owes 50, but on 50 he doesn't know? The malva's claim of 100 is also false. In that case, lo yav omer Reb Chiya the tzarich lishav al hashar. Their Reb Chiya would never have been the chayvim. If there's an aid that says you only owe 50 and not more, surely I wouldn't have to swear on the other 50. Well, that's the case of our Mishnah. Masnisin kirecha the nan tzadi lahai the chetz shaloi and nan tzadi lahai the chetz shaloi. Olama hitzrichu chachamim shvua. Why were the chachamim mechayvim a shvua? Shmamina. The answer must be time alav mishemoidim mixas hataynu Reb Chiya. The reason why in our Mishnah you want to make a raya from our Mishnah that you swear out to moidim b'miktas because of the shvuas moidim b'miktas that two aidim can be chayiv. It can't be that reason because in a case of moidim b'miktas in this case you wouldn't swear. If there was an aid that said I only owe 50 and not the 100, I wouldn't swear. So the shvu in our Mishnah has nothing to do with moedim b'miktas, because in the case of moedim b'miktas, that would parallel the case of the Mishnah. You for sure would not swear. So what would the reasoning in our Mishnah be? It must be Rabbi Yochanan. There's reason for the shvua in our Mishnah must be Rabbi Yochanan, not a shvu moedim b'miktas. So therefore, you don't have a raya from the Mishnah. Because the shvuah of our Mishnah has nothing to do with the shvuahs moedim b'miktas. So maybe that's the time that you can have on Reb Chiya that the raya that he brought from our Mishnah is not such a good raya. Okay, Zok to Gemara, Ella, ki yidmer v'tana tuna, but l'maisa we can't slug up Reb Chiya. What did Reb Chiya mean? When Reb Chiya brought a raya from our Mishnah, he must be bringing a good raya. Dr. Gemara, you're right, but maybe the raya that Reb Chiya is bringing is not to this halacha that he said that when two edim are made on 50, he'll have to swear on the other 50. Reb Chiya said a different halacha, and maybe it's a different halacha that Reb Chiya is trying to bring a raya to from our Mishnah. The Tana Tuna, I idach Reb Chiya itmar. Dam Reb Chiya. Reb Chiya said, "Mani li biyatcha." Reuben tells Shimon, you owe me $100. Bala Amar, Ein Loch Biyadi Elanun Zuz, you only owe me 50. So that seems like a classic case of Moed B'Miktas, but here's the difference. The Halach, here's the 50. So I'm not just saying I owe you 50, I'm actually paying you a 50 on the spot. As Shmuel used to say, Nadich de Geld. Nadich de Geld. When I say Nadich de Geld, and I'm handing you the money, so now maybe you might say I'm not a Moed B'Miktas anymore. Now I'm a Koy for a Koil, because I've already wiped out the original debt, and now I'm denying fully the $50. So the halacha is chayiv. You're chayiv of Moed B'Miktas anyway. My timer, Halach nami kemoide miktas hatanyadam. Even Halach will still be considered Moed B'Miktas. And that was the brisa that Reb Chiya quoted, and he wants to bring a raya from our Mishnah that Halach is chayiv. V'tana tuna, and our Mishnah says, Shnaim oichsem talis. Two people are grabbing a talis. Now, via hacha, here, again, our case, we're comparing to a case of Moed B'Miktas, because I'm demanding the entire talis, and I have Edim sort of on half the talis. Via hacha, even the toughest, once I'm holding half of it, anan sahadi, the mighty toughest helechu. What I'm holding on to is as if it was halach, as if he said, go take it, because I'm holding on to it. And nevertheless, the katani yishava. Yet our Mishnah still says you swear. So that would be what Reb Chiya was trying to bring a raya to, or what we were trying to bring a raya to Reb Chiya's brisa. Let's have a look at Rashi. I did not spend them. And Rashi seems to say, even by milva, if I didn't spend the money and it's still there, I can actually say halach. There's a machlokes Rishonim that my Rabbi Ramshon brings down, well, not the Gra brings down. The Gra brings down that it's not so pashut. Could be milva, even if you still have it and you didn't spend it yet. Since it's leitzanit, you wouldn't be able to say halach unless you actually handed him the money. But Rashi seems to say that if he has the money, he could say halach on. Chayv lishav al ashar. You're still mechuyev to swear as a regular Moed B'Miktas. V'lo yamrinon hani de kamoidi lei begavayu. Here's the yesod of halach. The money that's in existence that I'm agreeing that I owe, hoyel ve'isnu be'einayu commanded nakat lehudami. It's as if it's already returned to the malva, and therefore it's a case of koy for a koil on the remaining 50. You don't say that. Rather, you say elo kishar Moed B'Miktas hu b'chai. And what's the right from our Mishnah? The Tanatuna, kasol kedaitach. We're making certain assumptions in our Mishnah. The Reb Chiya, time of the Masnisin, what is the reason for our Mishnah? Not because of a takana, is the Shavua, because of Reb Yochanan swore about a takana. Rather, Mishum danan sahadi the madi tavis dilayu, like we learned earlier. The assumption is that I'm monning the whole baget, and we have a nan sahadi that I own half the baget. So it's exactly like the case of that's exactly the case. And it's going to be working with a shvu deraisa. The hachados edim and an sahadi. The madi tofis high helechu. Yes, I have edim on 50%, but what I have edim on, it's as if it's already not. It's already. It's literally in the hands of the claimant already. So it's mamish a case of halach. Nevertheless, the katani the mechayiv shvuah shayr. Nevertheless, our Mishnah says that the defendant has to make a shvuah on the half. It should be no difference in the case of Aida B'Miktas. So there we have a raya. There we have a raya from our Mishnah that halach is chayiv. But Reb Sheshes Amar halach potter, which Tosfos tells us we actually paskin like. My timer. What's the svara? Why halach is potter? Why isn't that not a case of Moed B'Miktas? It's because kivan the Amar le halach hani zuzi the kamoide begavayu. The money that he is moide in, that's in existence, command the nokat lu malva dummy. It's as if the malva has it in his hands. And now the entire discussion is about the remaining money. And in the chamishim halamoidi, in the other chamishim, he's a koy for a koil. Hilchach leka haidos mixes a time. You don't have a Moed B'Miktas. So therefore, he will not be mechuyev b'shvuah. That is the halacha of Reb Sheshes, which we actually paskin like. So frag the Gemara, ulu Reb Sheshes kashem masnisan. we just said that you have a raya from our Mishnah that Halach is chayiv. Well, how is Reb Sheshes going to interpret our Mishnah? Zok Gemara, Takanas Chachamim. Zok Reb Sheshes, we already learned earlier. Rabbi Yochanan said that we could learn Pshat in our Mishnah. That's the Takanas Chachamim, because otherwise people are going to go Chapi Bos Talaisim. People are going to go Chapi Bos Talaisim, and then there's going to be trouble. If they know they have to swear, it'll mitigate that concern. Zok Gemara, Ve'edich. So what is the mandama who learns that Halach is Chayiv? What is he going to say? He'll agree. It is a Takanas Chachamim. If in the case of a regular Moed B'Miktas with Halach, there'd be a Chiyav D'Oraisa of a Shavuos Moed B'Miktas, then the Chachamim would be Mesakin Rabbanan Shavua Ke'ein D'Oraisa. Even when the Chachamim are Mesakin the Shavua, they don't like fabricating things out of thin air. They like finding a precedent, and then maybe adding on to it. So if there's this concept that in a normal Chiyav of Shavuos Moed B'Miktas, you'll be mechuyev shu even with halach. So when they're masakin, their special takana that people shouldn't chap each other's talaisim, it still fits in with the structure of a normal shvua, where it's only going to be chayiv shvua if, in the case of moed b'miktas, in a similar case of moed b'miktas, will be chayiv shvua, meaning even with halach. Eliyamut midarais halach potter. But if you are like Sheshes, the midarais halach is potter, misnakni rabbanan shvua, the lesser the kavasa b'daraisa. Are the rabbanan going to make such a bold shvua that in the Deraisa de Kachiv, Halach would pater? So even in this Derabanan de Kachiv, Halach should pater. They would never make such a new invention. Reb Sheshes obviously holds that they will make a new invention. That's what the machlokes would be about. So now we have a machlokes if Halach is chayiv, if Halach is pater. So we're off now on a tangent into Halach. We're going to be Halach into Halach now. It's on a night Hulach Halach. Okay. Meisvei Freik Tigma. Turning on Tamid Beis. Not off to a good start. I'm already behind. So let's go more. Shloim Dinrin. Someone writes a star, very, very clear and specific star. I owe you Shloim. I owe you Dinrin. But it doesn't say how many. So that's like a great star. So Malva Amar Chamish. The Malva says, yeah, you owe me 5 Shloim. The Loiva Amar Sholish. The Loiva says 3. Now we know what is the default. What is the minimum that Shloim could mean? What is the minimum that Din could mean? 2. So really, the Shtar Munei Obey is sort of saying that you owe me 2, because otherwise I would have had to specify. But here you have a Malva saying it means 5, and you have Veloy says it means 3. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, Hoyel v'hoyde mixes atayna. This is a classic case of Moed B'Miktas. So therefore, Yeshava, the Loiva will have to swear that it's only 3 that he's moided to, but he does not owe 5. Rabbi Kiva Aimer, no. In this case, the Loiva has a special namonis to be potter. You know why? Eino ela kemeshiv aveda upotter. He's mamish ameshiv aveda. What does Rashi say? I really could have said I only owe you 2. Because from the star, you only have proof that it's 2. And I'm a gentleman. I'm actually admitting to 3, which I could have easily gotten away with. The star Messiah, the star actually supports me that I only owe 2. The Chivin Loy Pirish, since the star doesn't specify how much is involved, Nikarim Advarim Sheshnayim Heim. That's why he didn't have to write in the star how many, because it meant only 2. The means line base. The Chivin Domer Gimel, this Loiv is such an honest guy, he's being mechayim himself more than what the star says. So that's called a Meshav Aveda. He's a Mamash Meshav Aveda. So you're going to reward him for being a tzaddik by sanctioning him with a shvua? That's not right. The Chachamim Patru as Meshav Aveda in a shvua. Whenever someone's a Meshav Aveda, imagine you find a wallet, it has $500 in it, and you give it back to the guy. The guy says, "Where's the other $500?" Could you imagine if they would have to make a shvua? I'll say, "To hell with you! I'm never going to return an Aveda again. I'll keep the money to myself." So a Meshav Aveda is Patru. It's not a Metzia lo Yishava. So this is Mamish Meshav Aveda. So why would you be Mechayim Meshua? That's what Chiya Shita. Give our Meinel Kameshav Aveda Upater. Katani Miyos. So let's go drill down and understand what Reb Shimon ben Elazar said. Reb Shimon ben Elazar Aimer Hoyel v'Hoyde Miktas Hatayna Yishava. It's a Moed B'Miktas. So let's analyze this. Time with Amar Shalom. The only reason why Reb Shimon ben Elazar is being Mechayiv him a Shavua is because he admitted to 3. Hashtayim. What if he would have only said 2? It's Masha Reb Shimon ben Elazar with Pater. Because if he was Mechayiv Shavua with 2, he should have said even by 2 I'm Mechayiv Shavua. But he didn't say that. He said you only Chayiv Shavua with 3. So let's analyze this. The high star, the Kamoidi Bay, this star, if he would have said 2, If he would have said two, whatever he said is really written in the star. That would be halach. Why is a star considered halach? Because since it's offered in the star and your nechasam are mishabadim, your karkaris are mishabadim, it's as if the malva already has the money. Yet we know clearly from Reb Shimon ben Elazar only being mechayev b'shvua by three, that by two there wouldn't be mechayev b'shvua. Why not? It must be because of halach. Ushmamina halach potter. Zok Rashi, time and Darmasholish. Kasogah to the chashta, the ma'aseh to yufta. What is the kasha on? What are we focusing on to bring our raya that halach is potter? We do not get pluktayu b'sholish v'chamish. Why is it that the discussion in this brisa was where the loiva admitted to three and the malva is demanding five? V'loy nakat v'loy v'amar shnayim. Why wasn't the machlokes in the case where the loiva said two? Doesn't moed b'miktas. You want five? I'm giving you two. Shemami no b'shtayim loy mechayev loy Reb Shimon ben Elazar. It must be that Reb Shimon ben Elazar would never have been mechayev b'shvua if it was two. Uchid mefarish also, like the Gemara elaborates and concludes, the chivin the choloi the asay b'shtar kshuva. Since his whole idea, if he was moeded to two, his idea is actually written in the star. The star namishtay mashma. The star is as if it says two in it. Anything that the star testifies for, we will consider halach. We will consider it prepaid. Why? When there's a milva b'star, karkar mishubad. But once he's admits to three, and the third seller is not in the star, shalishi milva al. Now the third seller that he's agreeing to is a milva al, the lav b'star kshuva. The einak karkar mishubadim. For that third, you for sure wouldn't be able to collect from the chashim mishubadim, and therefore v'lav helachu. So Zok Gemara, you have a case of halach, and you see that halach is potter. You see a variety from Shimon ben Elazar that halach is potter. Zok Gemara, loy, you don't have a right. Loylam eimalach shtayim chayv. Really, Reb Shimon ben Elazar would have been chayv by two. So for Gemara, why didn't Reb Shimon ben Elazar say you're chayv by two? That would have been a bigger chiddush. Even by halach you're chayv. No, there was a bigger chiddush by three. You want to know why Reb Shimon ben Elazar wanted to say you're chayiv b'shvua by three, not by two, even though two is a bigger chiddush, it's halach, because three is a bigger chiddush. Lafukim with Reb Kiva, the Amar Meishav Aveda Havu Potter. You, Reb Kiva, said that three, you're such a gentleman, you're Meishav Aveda, and because of that you're Potter. That's the nakuda that Reb Shimon ben Elazar wants to express that he disagrees with. Kamash Malam, the Moida b'miktas hatayna hava v'chayiv. That's not called Meishav Aveda. That's not called Meishav Aveda. That's called Moide b'miktas in a chayv, and therefore you're chayv. And that was a very important point that Reb Shimon ben Elazar wanted to bring out. Yes, saying two would be chayv would have been a chiddush as well, but he's focusing on Rebbe Kiva now by telling us that that's called Moide b'miktas. It's not called Meishav Aveda. Frank Gemara, which means Reb Shimon ben Elazar holds sai by two and sai by three. I'll be chayv. He picked three to express his halacha, but he would have held equally by two. It also be chayv. So I bazoi, Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer hoyel v'hoyde b'mikzas tiny yishava. Reb Shimon ben Elazar said it's only because he was moeded b'mikzas he swears. He should have said after yishava miboyle. If you're chayiv to swear side by two and side by three, he should have said after by both you swear, and then we would have learned two chiddushim from his words that side by two you swear because halach is chayiv, and side by three you swear and you don't say it's kameshav aveda. So you can't say that. You have to say that Reb Shimon ben Elazar is only be mechayiv by three and not by two. If Shtaim is potter, so you have a Rai Halach is potter. No, you still don't have a Rai Halach is potter. Halach is chayiv. Why is the potter here? Here, there's a separate reason why it's potter. That's not Halach. V'shayni yachad dekabasai le'shtara. He has a star that says two. So if he said two, you know why he's chayiv. You know why he's potter from a shvua. Halach would be mechayiv from a shvua in the regular case of Halach. But here it's as if he has two edim that says he's right. He has a star that says he only has two. So of course he doesn't have to swear because the star is his shvua. The star is his raya. Inami, or I can tell you another reason why he wouldn't swear with two. Mishum dahavel ishtar shiba karkois.
It says that it's a minimum of two.
Well, that is the question. It must say that it's two because if it was more, the malva would have never settled for such a star. If you're a malva, you would never agree to that.
It's open, then
that's why it's a discussion. Right. There's a good havamina that it doesn't say two. Right. So that is as far now that in fact it is. Let's look at Rashi. Shiny hacha de kamasai leishtara ha'edem achasumin elashtar me'edem kidvarav shalahayu elashtai. So there's a little bit of a connotation in the star that there was only two, probably because it didn't say more. Well, the kachle pirshim inyana. Oh, that's what Rashi says. Vibal, they didn't say how much it was, it must have meant two. So there's definitely some support to his argument that therefore we'll pot him from a shvua. I'll tell you another reason why he's potter from a shvua. Whenever there's a star, it's already a shaila of shibud karkois, because any milva b'star, the shibud karkois. You never swear when there's a discussion of shibud karkois. So Rashi, inami lahachi loy havu shtayim haydol l'chay b'shvua. His moida on the two, if it was a case of two, you know why he wouldn't make a shvua? If he shtar oimer came, ushtar have shibud karkois. And this is the very important point. He's being koifer. What he's being koifer is not karka. What he's being koifer is a milval peh. He's only being moida on the karka. Zok Rashi Chashem Sheinishboin al Kfir's karkois. The same way you wouldn't swear if you were denying that you owed money that was meshubed with karka. Kach hoida ason eina mavil deshvua. The fact that you were moida on a loan that has a shibud karka wouldn't be enough to trigger shvua, even though what you were koifer on was not backed up by a star, was not backed up by karka. The karkois imit mitar shvua. Karka is totally deleted from the parsha of shvua. Sai if you're koifer in it, sai if you're moida. Avol ki avar malve chomesh v'loy v'shalosh. Now you have kvir v'hoida, but masenkos b'star. There would be a chiya. So again, it's not because of halach. Kvaltin matzav marzutra. Oh no, I skipped the whole shtickle. It's very easy to finish the plot if you can skip shtickle, whenever you want. So where am I up to? The ikad the most of law miseifa. Where am I? Ikad the most of miseifa. There are those who brought this whole raya from Rabbi Kiva, not from Shimon Lazar. So let's look at Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva, since I admitted to three and I could have easily gotten away with two, that's called a Meshav Veda. Such a person you don't make mistake. The only reason why he's potter is because he was a Meshav Veda. Hush time. What if he only said two? It's a matter of Rabbi Kiva. Even Rabbi Kiva would be mechayiv. So you have a right that Rabbi Kiva would be mechayiv by two, because by two it's not Meshav Veda. The star Q in the Kamoida Bay Kahelach Tami, the same as Farah. Shmami Nehelach. So the same way we had a raya before that Helach is potter, here we have a raya Helach Chayim. So that's my loy. Loylam Emalach Shtayim Nami potter. Maybe Rabbi Kiva would have agreed that even if he said two, he would be potter. The high Ketani Shalosh. So why did Rabbi Kiva pick his Chiddush by three? Because he wanted to make a point to show that he disagrees with Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Well, fucking with Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, the Amar Moedim makes us a Taina Hava. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar holds. So now we're going on the premise that Helach is potter. If Helach is potter, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar said that by three there'd be a Chiya. V'chayiv. He wants to tell you, Rabbi Kiva, no, you're not Chayiv there either. Kamash Malon, the Meshav Aveda Hava Upat. I disagree with Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. This is considered the Meshav Aveda, and therefore I would not be Mechayiv Meshua. And Hachinami Mistaver. It's actually logical to say that that's pshat in this brisa. The Isolka Daitach. Shtayim Chayiv. If you're going to say that Rabbi Kiva, who pottered by three, would have been mechayiv him if he said two, if that's the case, v'shalosh heicha patale Rabbi Kiva. How in the world could Rabbi Kiva potter him by shalosh if he would be chayiv by shtayim? Hi iarume kamarim. He's making a kanuni over here. This is what he thinks himself. Iyamina shtayim. If I say two, I'm going to have to swear. Because if in fact Rabbi Kiva held that if I was smoyed on two, I'd have to swear. So the guys are short. He said, if I say two, I'm going to have to swear. Let me make myself like a matzadik. I'll say three. Now I can be Meshav Aveda. The Havak Meshav Aveda Iftar. So it wouldn't make sense to say that you're chayiv on two and potter on three, because if you're a chayiv on two, then this is not a Meshav Aveda. This is just a kunt to make himself look good so that he can get out of swearing. That wouldn't be logical to potter him from a shvua. For carrot, he's a conniving crook. Ella shemami no shtayim nami potter. It must be that if he said two, he taka be potter. So now he's an erlich guy. If had he said two, he would have been potter. Would have had support of the star. He said three. Now he's a meshav aved. So therefore, in fact, we will say that two would be potter. Elamai, two must be potter. But it's not necessarily. I'm sorry. So at the end of the day, it seems to be saying that Halach is potter, right? Our conclusion based on this, Ikadamasla Seifa, is now a conclusion that Halach is potter. So Gemara, if that's the case, it's sure on Chiya because we wanted to bring a raya. The Tanatun over here was that the Chiya was saying Halach is Chayiv. So Gemara, no, shiny hasam the Messiah lishtara. Maybe the reason why, if you said Shtaim your potter, he can use the same svar we used earlier to neutralize the raya from Shimon ben Elazar. Maybe it's because the star seems to indicate to that's why he doesn't have to swear. So normally Halach would be Chayiv. This is different because Messiah l'shtar, inami mishum davar l'shtar, shibud karkois, vein yishboin al kfiras, shibud karkois. Gewaltig. Most of Marzut are buried of Nacht. Tanu kelim v'karkois. Malva says you owe me $100 worth of clothing you borrowed from me, and you owe me $100 worth of karka that you borrowed from me. Hayde b'chelim. The Leiva says no, I taka owe you the begadim, but I don't owe you the karka. V'kaver b'karkois. Or the opposite. Haydi b'karkois, the cover b'kelim potter, because like we just learned a moment ago, shibud karkois, whether you're being koifer in them, whether you're being made in them, will not trigger a chiyuv of a shavus moedim miktas. But what if haydi miktas karkois? Again, you're potter, because now you have both bad. The kfira and the hayda was on karka. However, miktas kelim chay. If I mod you karka and kelim, and you're moedim miktas kelim, there'll be a chiyuv not only to swear on the kalim, but also to swear on the shvua. Time of the kalim v'karkois, the whole reason why there was a tour of shvua here is because there's karka involved. The karka lav bash shvua. But what if it was kalim v'kalim? What if the discussion was only about kalim, but dumya the kalim v'karkois? What is kalim v'kalim dumya the kalim v'karkois? Very simple. What is the distinction of karka? Karka, by definition, it's always a halach. Why? Because the karka is always there. You can't move it. So Kalim and Kalim Dumi the Kakois is Kalim in the case of Halach. You borrowed 2 clothings from me, and he says, no, I only borrowed 1. Here it is. That's Dumi the Kalim and Kakois. And what's halacha there? Clearly would be Chayiv. Because we said, Haydi b'miktas Kalim, going to be Chayiv. Hechadami. What would actually be the case? Lav Dami Halach. It would be a case of Halach. That's why it's Dumi the Kakois. Ushmami the Halach Chayiv. Do you have a Halach Chayiv? Technology. Loilam Eim Allah Kalim and Kalim Nami Potter. Kalim and Kalim would be Potter. And maybe Halach is Potter. So why did the Brash Dafka Chapan? When am I potter from a shvua? Only by Kalim v'karkois, not by Kalim v'kalim. When in fact, if the old Halach is potter, I'll be potter from a shvua even by Kalim v'kalim. Hakamash Malon, Hoyde b'mikzas Kalim Chayiv Afal Karkois. The chiddush of this Brash is that once there's a shvua triggered on the Kalim, because there was a Moed b'mikzas on the Kalim themselves, so you had a kfira and Hoyda on the Kalim. Now will allow you to swear on the karka as well, even though normally karka is out of the realm of shua. Ma'ikamash malon gilgish shua zoykikin, that you could be zoykik, you could be mechayiv mashvua even on karka when there's already a shua deraisa on Caleb. Yeah, tanina zoykikin hanachosim she'ein lo machrayis es hanachosim sheyesh lo machrayis lishav aleihen. Once there's a fee of shua on the nechosim she'ein lo machrayis on the kalim, it will now allow you to demand a shvua on the karka as well. Strike the Gemara. I didn't read it right. My kamash zoikin tanina, it's a brisa. Why do I need to learn this out of a dik from this brisa of kelim and kakois? We have a brisa that says it's black and white. It says zoikin and nechosim she'ein lo machrayis as in nechosim yesh lo machrayis shavalin. That's why you're right. Hacha ikar. That brisa is the ikar place where it's mentioned. And there the Gemara is saying it. I think here's the ikar, I believe. The Mishnah of Kalim and Karkais, even though it's only B'derech Remiza that we learn it, but this is the main place where it needs to be discussed in the Parsha of Shavuos, in that Masechta. There in Chiddushim, it mentions it, but it's only Agav Gur because it was speaking about Nechashim Yel Machrayis, so it threw it in as an add-on. But that's not where the Gemara is focusing. The Mishnah is focusing on the halach. Correct the Gemara. Ulamam Damar Helach Potter. If you hold Helach is Potter, Amai Yitzchak Kra Lemute Karka Mishavu. If you hold Helach is Potter, why do I need a special pasuk? There's special psukim that say that you don't swear on karka. If halach is potter, why don't I just use the general rule of halach to potter karka from shua? Why do I need a special pasuk? Hakol karka halach. Amalach itzrachra hecha the chaverba virus sichen maris. What if I damage the karka? Now Zok Rashi, there's no halach anymore. So it's possible to have a case of karka that's not halach. So therefore, in those cases, you still don't have to swear because the pasuk says you never swear for karka. Inami Heicha the tanu kalim v'karkois v'hoide v'kalim v'cover v'karkois. If I asked for both, like this brisa, and I was more than kalim v'karkois, if it wasn't for the fact that we have a special pasuk of pattering karka from shvua, this wouldn't be a case of halach, because I was more than the kalim where there is no halach. So you have cases that halach is not irrelevant, where I still don't swear on karka because of the pasuk. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll be on tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
The video, Yosy?